I'm ready to rock. I'm good to
Okay,
go whenever you are.
go for it, Court.
All right, so welcome everybody to the November South Florida UiPath chapter meeting. We appreciate everybody being here today. We've got a great speaker with Luke, and he is going to tell us about the features in the latest release. So really excited to hear about that. I know we've got a big group participating today, so it sounds like there's a lot of other people that are excited about that as well. So in a minute, I'm going to turn it over to Luke and let him get us started, and he's going to share his screen. But just wanted to encourage everybody, if you are able to turn on your camera, we welcome that, and we welcome participation as well. So if you've got questions, feel free to drop those in the chat or unmute yourself, and we're happy to have the audience participation as well. If you'd like to come on live and ask Luke or any of us questions. And I believe, Tracy, do we have any Mentimeter in questions today?
We'll do it at the end.
Okay.
We want to narrow down some of our options for what we do next, and there's still a good number of them on the list.
All right, great. So later in the webinar, we'll be asking for your participation as well on Mentimeter. For those of you that have joined our calls before, you're probably familiar with that. But if not, we'll give you the website instructions a little bit later in the call so that you're able to join us. And would love to get your feedback on future topics and planning for next year. So it's hard to believe we're already at the end of 2022. But we are, and planning for our holidays coming up in 2023 for next year. So we appreciate your feedback on that as well. And with that, I think, Luke, we can hand it over to you. And if you could share your screen, we can get started, and would greatly appreciate as well if you could introduce yourself.
Absolutely. Thank you, Courtney. Appreciate it. So just to reiterate a couple of things that Courtney mentioned, I'm going to put my email in the chat right now. I have a couple topics that I've highlighted today that I think are particularly interesting and relevant for the 22.10 release. That said, if you have any other questions, you want to dig into anything else, I encourage you to ask live, because that's going to make the next 53 minutes much more enjoyable for all of us if you're more interactive. And if anything comes to mind after the presentation, feel free reach out to me directly. Through whoever your UiPath representative is, whatever is easier for you. I think, in terms of introductions, Luke Gonyea, I am a sales engineer here at UiPath. I primarily support the Northeast. I'm actually covering for my colleagues today, Drew Patel. I'll do my best to fill his shoes, but like I said, I encourage, make this as interactive as possible and make this as meaningful for all of you. So let me figure out how to share my screen. Okay, you should see my PowerPoint. Someone confirm? Awesome.
We can see it. Yes.
All right. So today I am just going to talk to slides. I was debating if I wanted to show some of the new features live. Depending on time, I can probably get to some of that. But really, I just want to highlight a couple of key aspects, and then we'll get into some of the specific features. One thing that you notice, and I'm not sure how many calls or marketing material that you've witnessed before, but we've slightly changed how we position different parts of our platform. So we used to have 5 different steps, 5 different pillars of automation. We've boiled down and concatenated those into 3 main. You're going to see a lot of similarities. I think this is a little more clear and gives a better picture of what we offer as a platform. And we're going to drill into specific parts of each of these, but some things that you'll notice, and I think from my experience with customers that has been of particular interest, is one, reinvesting or further investment in the discovery pillar. So we've done a lot of work with our process mining tool, bringing that up to, I would say, industry standards or expectations, developing, or I should say, increasing our development time and resources funneled to that. Another new one that you'll see here is what we call communications mining. I'm not sure how much people have been following the UiPath news, but probably about a month and a half ago, we recently acquired a company called Reinfer. Their specialty is on communication. So think emails and customer service scenarios where there's a lot of dialogue going back and forth between the customer and the company. They specialize in extracting intent and then actually being able to turn that information over to robotic process automation robots to go and execute some actions. I'll get more into that in a little bit. That was probably the biggest highlight from Forward, which is our developer conference that happened in September. And the most inquiries I get from my subset of customers. So I do want to spend some time on that. Going down the list, the automating portion of our platform, you'll see a push towards personal productivity and what we call low code development. So with introduction of a web-based development environment called Studio Web, some improvements to our integration service connections. If you're not familiar with all these different parts of the platform, like I said, don't worry. I'll go into more depth a little bit later. And then last piece, the operational piece. Just as we continue to work with our customers and understand the difficulties they have that come up when you're managing an enterprise level automation program, improving that experience, further investing in the test automation piece of our platform. And there's a couple other aspects here that I will touch on too. Before I get into each of these individual sections, is there any questions off the bat? Anything you've heard before I go into the details of each component? I think silence is good. Like I said, feel free, stop me at any point. So, sorry, wrong screen. So there is a lot of new features in 22.10. I don't think it is the best use to go through each of these 30 different features and summarize them for you. So what I do and like how I like to have these conversations is I highlight what I think is cool, what I think is relevant, what I see in my customers. That being said, anything that you see highlighted or not on this particular slide, there is a ton of collateral available to you. Just to reiterate, reach out to me, reach out to your UiPath representative, and we can provide more information on any of these subjects. As far as the order I'm going to cover them, it doesn't necessarily align. I'm going to start with the communications mining, but kind of just an open discussion, touching on each of these points, and then answering any questions as they come up. All right. So communications mining, this is what I was referring to with the Reinfer platform and how we acquired that company a month and a half ago. I'm not sure how familiar you all are with our document understanding module. The way I like to articulate this, communicate this with my customers is you have three buckets of potential documents or collateral that you'd like to process. You have structured, so picture some type of application. The format of the document is always the same 100% of the time. You have semi-structured, which would be an invoice. So whether you have an invoice from Home Depot or Thermo Fisher or whatever company it may be, the structure of the document itself changes, but the fields that you're pulling from that are more or less the same. So line item, shipping address, vendor name and address. And then the final bucket would be unstructured. So that would be your emails, your long blocks of text, contracts, a couple other examples that are slipping my mind. But the reason why I say this is with our document understanding module, the two first buckets, so the structured and the semi-structured documents, we are rock stars at. I forget what the percentage of our customers use document understanding to process something like an invoice, but it is not even a growth part of our platform anymore. It's so embedded in people's automation landscape. The area that we saw that we could use further investment, further allocation of resources is in that unstructured bucket. And that's where this acquisition of Reinfer comes into play. Their main strength is that communication aspect. So like I was saying, emails exchanged back and forth between customers and company. And this will work hand in hand with the UiPath platform from two perspectives. One would be the actual technology, so extracting that information from those emails, handing off to a robot to go execute some process, as well as how the product itself is licensed. Not to get into the specifics today, but if you're familiar with document understanding, process mining, task mining, they all use a concept called AI units. The communications mining piece will also use that. So trying to simplify the technology and the processing of the licensing as much as possible. Take a breather here. Any questions on the communications mining?
Hey, but Luke, just to clarify, it's separate, right? So it is separate right now, at least from document understanding?
Yep, today it is separate, and you'll see that's in private preview. To give you a look behind the curtain from like the UiPath sales engineer perspective, there's certain qualifications that the customer has to meet before we can actually go and engage and Reinfer opportunity. Don't quote me on this, but with our fiscal year ending in January, I believe, I think a lot of that is going to be more clear. So how customers can interact with, or I should say, get involved in these communication mining opportunities, the scope of that, and as far as like our enablement, that'll all be much more established in the next month or two.
Got it. Thanks.
Yep, not a problem. I thought there was another point here. If it comes up, I'll bring it back up. Any other questions before I move on? Good, great. So this next slide, it's probably gonna be a little distracting because it's a video. But what we see, and this is a very popular topic at Ford, is what we call automation launchpad. So there's a lot of different aspects that come into this from a benefit standpoint. Like, what are customers receiving from this? What we recognized as a company, particularly in citizen development opportunities, it was difficult to onboard and standardize people's training around the automation program. So our intent with this automation launchpad is to give more structure and a formalized process to how people get started with RPA program in a particular enterprise. There's different steps. These steps are going to walk you all the way from requesting licenses, downloading Studio, getting proper training, all the way to submitting an idea to Automation Hub and actually putting an automation into production. So really a central hub for everything that your automation program has to offer the employees at your company. It is the second point. So that's the benefit to you as the customer of UiPath. from a technology perspective, which is cool to me as the sales engineer, is this is all based in the UiPath apps platform. So what that means is that there is an out-of-the-box template, but you're also going to have the ability to customize it, tailor it to your specific needs. And I think the most important part, at least from someone who's writing the check, is that this is going to be included for any enterprise level customer. So this is not, as of today, licensed separately from the platform. If you have unattended robots configured, Orchestrator, you're also going to have access to the Automation Launchpad. As of today, the UiPath apps platform, so Automation Launchpad is not available to the MSI standalone customers, but anyone that's in UiPath Automation Cloud or Automation Suite will have access to this Automation Launchpad. Hopefully it wasn't too distracting to have me talk and have the demo run at the same time. There's a great video presentation from Ford. If anyone's interested, let me know. I can share that with you. Available publicly online. They really walk through why we built this, how it was built, and how you can leverage it as a customer. Any questions on Automation Launchpad before we move on to the Automate section of the platform? Good.
Hey, Luke, no questions on that, but just a little bit of a shout out. So we actually, one of our previous sessions was on citizen development.
Nice.
And so if there's anybody that wasn't participating in that and might be interested, we've got the recording from that as well. But it highlighted the Automation Launchpad as well. So some good use cases there, especially for those that might be interested in building out their citizen development program.
Awesome. Sounds good to me, Courtney. Thank you. I will use Automation Launchpad as a great transition to our next topic, which this comes up a lot of times. First, before I even talk about UiPath apps, I want to give a plug to my colleague. So Silvana Schmidt was sales engineer at UiPath, got on stage and did the presentation for one of the keynote speeches at Forward, specifically about UiPath apps. So in addition to sharing the Automation Launchpad presentation, I can also share her presentation and give her a little bit of love, share it on social media, whatever you do. That being said, one of the most interesting features that came out with UiPath apps is the ability to have public facing capabilities. So I don't know if everyone on the phone has used UiPath apps before, but it was only for the employees internal to your organization. With this external facing app feature, anyone that has the URL and proper permissions would be able to access that, whether or not they're a part of your organization or not. And just to provide like a little more context, I have a customer that has a scenario where they own convenience stores and they get gas delivered from, they have like 50 or 60 different haulers. And in the current scenario, it's some arduous process of scanning what they call a bill of landing, taking information from that, storing these files in a bunch of different directories. They have like 11 people on staff that just for processing these bill of landings and where these deliveries take place. One of the things that we're solutioning is actually having a UiPath app that the trucker would be able to go to the app, like scan a QR code, go to the app, add some information about the document itself, snap a picture, and then just hand that off to an automation. So actually totally rewriting the process for the trucker and as well as the UiPath customer. So there's going to be no requirement of opening those documents from emails and extracting information. So a really powerful application of UiPath apps, and I think we're going to see a lot more of those come up as this becomes in part of the general availability release. The last thing, well, two things. One, you'll actually see a link for the video itself on this slide for my colleague's presentation, so I don't have to send that to you. The second thing, the really part of the push for the no-code, low development platform is you see the support for integration service. So that's our API automation tool. So just making the process of interacting with third-party apps even easier. So instead of having to create a studio automation that has this connector called whenever it's acted on, you can be done directly through the app, just removing a layer of development there, making that experience a little more seamless. That being said, with our integration service, so this came out, I want to say, in the 21.10, so maybe last year. This is the first release. It had 50 or 60 out-of-the-box connectors for different apps like Salesforce, SAP, to authenticate and use an API that's available from the vendor. This has gained a lot of traction in the last year or so, and we've gotten a lot of feedback from our customers and what limitations exist. One of the most powerful changes that occurred in this release is that in addition to out-of-the-box connectors, you also have the ability to create your own. So if you have an application that has an API available, you're going to have more options to automate. Traditionally, how I position it is that there's three main methods of automating. You have UI automation, you have computer vision, and you have API automation. With this connector builder, that API automation option is becoming available for more or a wider spectrum of different applications. So really pushing UiPath and our automation platform to be that broker or that automation hub. That's probably not the right word because it's one of our branded terms, but really the center point of all automation throughout your enterprise, regardless of how or what technology you're using to automate. Any questions, thoughts, UiPath apps, how it connects to integration service, anything? Everyone good? Sorry, I need to take a breath here too. I'm talking too fast.
Luke, we did have somebody in the chat that I think is interested in the UiPath apps content that you referenced.
Yeah, absolutely. I can share both of those. I'm gonna make a note right now so I can't forget. Okay. Oops, sorry. The last thing that I have for the automate portion of the platform is Studio Web. And this is related to the UiPath apps, the integration service, and how we're pushing and we're developing our low code options for developing automations. So the UiPath Studio Web, the coolest part about it is that when you go to your automation cloud account, you're going to have the ability to automate applications directly from that URL. So you don't need to have Studio or Assistant installed on your machine. You can develop directly from your web interface. I should say the important note here is the full spectrum of functionality that you get in Studio or Studio X is not, as of today, going to be available in Studio Web. But that being said, what we see potential for and how we would like customers to leverage this is for personal productivity purposes. So if you have automations that you run day to day that might not be applicable to everyone else in your organization, someone who isn't a RPA developer but has some technical knowledge can go and automate it in Studio Web and use personal automation without having to go through the process of getting a program installed on their machine, just being able to automate directly from that web browser. And one of the points, I know there's a lot of information here on the right side. You'll see that cross-platform automations. So that ties together with our ability to, or say our push to use API automation in addition to UI automation. So Studio Web is going to be fully integrated with that integration service connector too. So you have multiple options of how you want to automate these different apps. One thing that I had highlighted on my other slide that I didn't have a dedicated slide, but I want to touch on was, Automation Express. So Automation Express is the bundling of the integration service and Studio Web. So just giving our personal productivity users the full package. If you don't have an enterprise solution ready, we now have an option for those lower tier users that just want to start automating, but they don't necessarily have the structure that we see with our enterprise customers. So Automation Express is just taking those different technologies and pairing them together and giving our users a bundled starting point, if that makes sense. Sorry, go back to any other questions on anything we talked about with automation? I know I will share the videos for Automation Launchpad and the UiPath apps, but anything else on the automate portion before I move to operate? I think we're good. Oops, sorry. All right. So Orchestrator has a couple new improvements. I actually know more about these ones because I was responsible for giving an internal presentation to other sales engineers about this piece of the platform. As far as what I think is the most important to customers is going to that first point. So you see the classic to modern folders migration tool. I'm not sure if anyone on the line has gone through that experience yet, but it's a very tedious task of taking all of your assets, queues, triggers, everything that's associated with your classic folder and porting it over to a modern structure. So in this release, we've given customers a tool that helps automate that process. Just a disclaimer, it is not a catch-all in the sense that you get to click this button and everything's going to be fine. But at least with how it is today, from what I've seen, maybe reducing the time of migration 50 to 75%. So getting you to be able to migrate quicker. It still doesn't necessarily change the complexity of that process itself, especially for a large enterprise deployment. But it is a step in the right direction to make that effort a little bit easier, empower our customers to be able to do that without necessarily involving a partner or UiPath professional services. The other points, I don't think they're much more technical. If there's any interest on them, I can talk more to them, but I wasn't planning on sharing them today. Our next topic is Automation Cloud. So the two things I want to mention on the updates would be one, first, this idea of the canary tenant. So we had a lot of customers, as you probably know, if you're on Automation Cloud, the platform updates every 2 weeks. And they are having trouble with that occurring automatically in their environments. So they wanted the desire to be able to test those updates before actually rolling out to production. The canary tenant is going to enable you just to do that. So you can connect robots, you can test out your processes on the new update before it's actually rolled to production. This is an optional feature. You don't have to enable it. But if you are, worried about update affecting your processes, this could be a great option before pushing out upgrade to all of your production tenants. The last thing, and I'm kind of biased because I've had this come up, I work with a lot of banking customers, is you see customer managed keys. Sadly, I don't have a ton of information that I can pull and show you today. I'm going to do a little bit more digging after the fact. If people are interested, I can share that. But I want to highlight it here because security is so important with a lot of our customers, and UiPath recognizes the desire to have more control over the different aspects of authentication. So this customer managed key is just one step into that direction, and further increasing our security, our platform's robustness. And I know there's a couple other changes coming down the line. So if you are working for an enterprise that you don't think would ever consider cloud, I really do encourage you to reach out to your UiPath representative and try to narrow down what specific security requirements you need from your InfoSec team, because we're investing so much engineering resources in that, and really giving you the best option to deploy the UiPath platform. Any questions on Automation Cloud or Orchestrator? I think we're good. The one of the last things, and we're getting to the end here, is Automation Suite. So this is, for everyone that doesn't know, you have three main deployment options in the UiPath platform. You have the Windows standalone installer, UiPath Automation Cloud, our hosted SaaS service. The third is our Linux-based, what we call Automation Suite installer. I can send a link to it. I'm making a note right now. The availability in terms of the UiPath products from the different deployment methods vary. However, the thing I want to highlight here is we are pushing for more parity between our Automation Suite option and our subscription as a service Automation Cloud option. So one of the things you'll see on here is that process mining capability is now added to Automation Suite. So just as far as future strategy and the best deployment methods, the Automation Cloud and the Automation Suite have the most functionality available in terms of our new cutting edge products. So all of our machine learning and artificial intelligence tools, so document understanding, the reinfer, process mining, task mining, those are being added both to our UiPath Cloud as well as our Automation Suite option. All these other things I can get into more depth. This is more of a niche in the sense that not a ton of customers are opting for the Automation Suite option. But if there's any interest here, more than happy to share information. As far as what I have prepared, I feel like I talked really fast. It's 12:38. Is there any questions on anything we covered, anything that we want to go into more depth on?
So Luke, I want to understand that how we will use these features. For example, if I want to work on Excel, so I have to upload the activity or the package like uipath.excel.activities. So how I'll be using these through UiPath?
Do you have a particular feature in mind?
Yes.
Like what feature did we share today that you're wondering about?
So just give me any one example. So conceptually, every others will also work in the same way.
Yeah. So like Automation Cloud, the changes to Orchestrator settings, the incorporation of UiPath apps, that should all be available through your cloud URL. On-prem is a little more labor extensive in the sense that you'll have to upgrade to get some of these features. And double check, like if you're upgrading just for a feature, double check your UiPath representative, make sure that feature is available in the on-prem install. But I guess to give you a more concise answer, if you are a UiPath Automation Cloud customer, they should be available, if not already, in your cloud tenant.
Okay. Okay, fine. Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions? Good. Courtney, Tracy, did I talk too fast? I know we're 12:40 here.
No, you did great.
Awesome. All right, so as far as follow-ups, I have the UiPath apps video and the automation launchpad video. And then if anyone needs additional information, collateral, feel free to reach out to me directly. I have a ton of information I can share.
And the slide deck will also get sent out after the meeting as well. So for anybody that wasn't able to join, or for those of you that were able to join us and appreciate the content that Luke provided, that will also get sent out.
Awesome. Thank you
Luke,
so much.
No, thank you so much. This has been great. And I think, Tracy, do you want to do the questions on Mentimeter?
Yes. So
Awesome.
sorry, it's a little small. I did not include some options, but if each of you would pull out your phone or a desktop browser window and go to menti.com, we want to hear what you guys would like to see next. These are all options that you guys weighed in on prior. We just want to know what the order of priority should be here. And you're welcome to vote multiple times if you have multiple things you're interested in. Just vote for sure the things that are most interesting to you, so we can figure what we'll have come January, February. Looks like AI Center's in the lead. This actually won at our company also this year. We did a presentation on it back in March. All right, we'll give it probably 30 more seconds and then we'll wrap things up. All right, 5 more seconds and then we'll wrap up voting. All right, we'll officially close it out now. It looks like AI Center is the highest vote topic of interest. And then we've got a 5-way tie for second, so not a bad thing to have. We've got plenty of things to talk about over the next few months. So thanks everybody for participating in that. And then Courtney, do you happen to have the date handy for January you wanted to talk about for our next session?
Yeah, so our next session, so December, the holidays, we'll be taking a break. But in January, on January 24th, we will have a guest speaker from ADT. So Pete Mara from ADT is going to join us. They have a pretty mature RPA program with UiPath. And so we're really excited to have Peter join us, and he's going to talk about their automation program. And I know automation best practices is on here, so that's certainly a good one to come and learn from, since they've got a program that's been in place for a few years now. So I'm sure he'll be touching on a lot of the things that we'd like to see next, but specifically on the automation best practices will be one that we'll be learning a lot from Peter on. So looking forward to that. Registration will be open soon. So you'll get an invite just as soon as that gets out there, but plan for that January 24th at 12 p.m. Eastern. And I think with that, Tracy, are there any other events to announce?
Nope. Other than tomorrow is the last of 3 for the UiPath Women in Automation series. So that men and women alike are welcome to come join that and support Priya, talking about details of how she became an architect and yeah, other interesting topics for women.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you again, Luke, for joining us. We appreciate it. We look forward to getting the content, and we'll see everybody in January. So happy holidays, and look forward to talking to everybody in the new year.
To you as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.